This is the wInsight 8.3.2 training. It probably won't take a huge amount of time, but wInsight 8.3.2 is due for release at the end of May. It's a mixture of some customer requested features, some engineering and I guess system updates that were required, some security, integration, and I think that's about it, really. So I'll just move on to the overview. So the main changes were some changes around modernizing mainly the wInsight administrator UI, but along with that, we also made some changes related to scaling that that affected all of the legacy applications, if you like. So not only the administrator, but also desktop and CS Glue, etc. So a lot of the changes were just customer requested usability things. We also made 64-bit versions, so it can be installed in 64-bit mode. So it would go into programs rather than programs x86 and have obviously some performance implications as well as greater access to memory. We did some integration changes. We've always been able to bring in Decca metrics, and there's been a ClickView Decca metrics dashboard, but that was the only way to see Decca metrics within wInsight. What we've done is added some reports in wInsight Desktop, and those reports will provide some high-level access to the Decca metrics. So the route to that will be if you're bringing in a DCDE transfer file from Cobra. If you're taking that to Acumen in order to calculate metrics, then you can then take that same DCDE from Acumen and load both the Cobra data and the metric data in wInsight, and then you'll be able to see, or all wInsight users would see Decca metrics related to their projects. Something that was really forced upon us in a way was the upgrading of the wInsight reporting system to use edge technology. So specifically Microsoft WebView 2. So wInsight reports are basically reports that are HTML based, both in administrator and desktop, and those reports are, in the case of desktop, user extensible, so users can write their own reports, or they can modify the Deltek reports or the standard reports. And because in the past that has been supported in a window, an application window that was based on Internet Explorer technology, but now with Microsoft dropping that technology, we've been pushed to, or we've been forced really to move to a new technology, and that's obviously the Edge browser engine. And we'll talk a bit more about that, and we'll look at some of those reports. And the final one shown here is implementing the new PPM encryption and hashing protocols in wInsight. So there have been some things that have been popping up in the security scans for quite a period of time now around encryption and hashing. So when we've had scans, basically across all of the PPM products, there has been a number of items that have cropped up in terms of, the lack of, the encryption and hashing not being sufficiently secure. So there's been a PPM-wide move to new protocols, so the new DLLs, the security DLLs, etc. And wInsight has picked those up. So that's the summary. So if we move first to modernizing the administrator UI, there's a number of things. One of the things that traditionally wInsight hasn't done well is in the grids in administrator, when you've had linking fields. So and you can see a group of examples here. Things like in the contract table, you have a calendar, a contract, some references to units and structures, etc. You can click in those fields and get a drop down which shows you the translation. But once you've added a value, it shows in the grid as a number, which is relatively meaningless for most users. So in other words, you don't know who contractor 9 is just looking at it. You would have to click in the field or go and look in the contractor table. So what we've done is, and it's not just in the contract grid, what we've done is all of those types of fields which are based on references to other tables within wInsight, we've now basically in the grids themselves, we show the description rather than the ID. So the ID is still stored in the database, but the description now shows through to the user. So it makes it much more readable. Another one that has been requested a lot is the ability to click to sort. So here you can see if you right click in the column header, it will give you a sort ascending or descending. So you can basically very quickly sort spreadsheets within administrator. And again, that applies to all the spreadsheets, but obviously more useful in some of the larger spreadsheets like calendars, etc. So, like I say, there've been enhancements that have been requested over a period of time, and now we've basically brought them into the tool itself. Another major customer request is the ability to filter within the administrator grids, and again, it's been requested a number of times, and basically what we've done is added a Cobra style column filter. So you can click on the column and choose to filter, and essentially you can either type a filter in if it's a text field, or if it's a you can type a filter in if it's a text field, or you can choose from a drop-down list. So if it's a text field, it'll show you a unique list of contents of that field, which you can scroll down and pick something in, or you can type in. But it also supports the numeric fields. So with numeric, you can have greater than, less than, etc. So it supports all the various field types, but probably most useful on things like text filters and numeric filters. And as part of that, it will show the current filter in the sort bar. So you can actually have more than one filter applied. So you might filter on CAM, and as you can see in the example I've got on here, I've filtered on CAM, and I've also filtered on long description beginning with project or proj. So that's a double filter, and so it basically allows you to do sort of reasonably complex filters with just the simple column filter approach. The other thing that we've done, and again, this came from a user request, is basically to support higher resolution displays. So wInsight, wInsight in 8.3.1 and before really only supported up to really 1024. Well, I think what's my is it 1900 by 1200, that sort of resolution. But we've had some users who've been using UHD displays, and particularly in many cases UHD displays with also using scaling. So high resolutions with scaling turned on, and unfortunately with wInsight's old icons and some of the settings in terms of fonts, the icons didn't scale, so they became very tiny icons at the top of the screen, and some of the navigational fonts and what have you also didn't scale, and although you could set them, they weren't remembered, and so it became very difficult to use at those higher resolutions, and people were finding they had to take the resolution down on their laptops or monitors. So what we've done is we've created a whole new set of icons for wInsight, and you can see those here. And basically the icons not only scale, but they are more modern, and they're sort of based on a similar set to those that we use in Acumen. So they appear more to have greater commonality with Acumen, as well as looking much more modern. So we have all of the same icons, but like I say, they've all been redesigned, and they scale properly now. And we've also enhanced the remembering of font sizes. So some of the font sizes that weren't remembered previously are remembered now. So if you are using a high resolution display and you set things like fonts and what have you to adjust for that, then they'll be remembered. Okay, so yeah, that sort of covers the the enhancements in terms of I guess customer requests and modernization of the administrator product or application. The next thing we've done is, or one of the next things is decametric reporting, and we've got a couple of we've got 3 reports really. We've got a metric detail report, which is this one shown here, which basically goes through and basically for all of the metric categories, it will basically list the metrics, and for those metrics which fail, it will list all the things which contributed to that failure. So in here, for instance, we've got a metric that fails in terms of reconciliation of hours, and there are a number of control accounts that contribute to that, and then below that we've got work package and value alignment between cost and schedule, and we've got a number of work packages which fail that test. and you can see that we're listing the work packages and the control accounts in the appropriate places. And it would also apply to activities. So as part of that decametric export from Acumen, or it could be brought in independently, you get activities that, if you brought the schedule in, and that, as I say, it's included in the Acumen export. If you brought the schedule into wInsight, you would see the activities in the detailed report as well for those metrics which involved activities, and of which there are quite a lot, obviously. So we've got a detailed report there, but we've also got a summary report. So essentially, again, across the categories, you can get a summary of how many failures there have been over time. So essentially, it's a version of the 6-period summary report that we have in wInsight, but it's basically looking at metrics or metric failures rather than some of the other metrics that we've been looking at. And there is a version of this 6-period summary that works at the element level as well. So if you're tracking down through the WBS or OBS, you can see again a 6-period summary based on, it's not actually based on, although it's categorized by the same breakdown, the actual failures are more of the contributing account of the contributing control accounts or work packages or activities under that particular WBS or OBS element. So doesn't really give you the same numbers, but it still has the same impact of giving you the relative performance over time, and will obviously show whether you're getting worse or better. Next, we're going to look at WebView reports. So this is the change that was brought about by the fact that Microsoft no longer supports IE, and that was what we were using before. So our old view window for reports was based on Internet Explorer technology, and the new window is now presented using Edge technology. For the end user, there is not a lot of change. We still support user definable reports. We still support all the reports that we had in wInsight Administrator and in wInsight Desktop previously. There are some slight, from a UI perspective, really, it would hardly be able to distinguish when you're actually looking at the reports themselves. But there are some slight changes in terms of some of the menu support. So some of the things that you used to do from the main menu, now you do from the right-click menu within the reports themselves. So it still gives you things like, we're still able to build in things like the ability to do to select roll-up options, which you can see on that right-click menu there, which are sort of wInsight functions effectively. And we can also select indenting and fonts and stuff like that. But some of the things like print, which used to be a main menu function, have now moved to this right-click menu. And we've also got some things like web select, web capture, save as HTML on there. So web select allows you to gives you better capability when you're looking to pull things out of grids, so you can actually select grids and then copy them to Excel quite easily via that method. And so basically, to a large extent, for people who are just using reports, it's going to be a fairly transparent thing. But like I say, there are those sort of fringe actual interaction changes. And with the move to using WebView 2, there was another minor change we had to make, and that is around the input menu. So within wInsight, you can basically input things like format 5 variance reports, or you can put in descriptive element narratives, control account narratives, and things of that nature. So, statements of work, that sort of narrative text can be put into wInsight. And you also have the ability to format the forms that are used. So your format 5 narrative might be structured with HTML to have grids and things of that nature, and to also show data such as variances and the like. Unfortunately, WebView 2 doesn't support HTML editing, so we've had to use a different control to actually support the input side of things. It's still going to support having formatted narrative templates and the other things that people do within those narrative templates, such as grids, and support the concept of bringing in things like variance tables and what have you. A minor UI change, again, the edit menu options were in the main menu previously. With the change to using the new editor, the edit options, so as you can see at the top of this form here, are now within the edit window. So in some ways that's an improvement. So you're able to do the same sort of things in terms of creating grids and all the formatting of text, etc. But the menu to do that is not in the main window toolbar. It's in the toolbar within the edit application itself. So again, there will be some minor changes for people who have their own templates. We've changed the templates that we supply as part of. We changed the templates that we supply with wInsight itself. So there's a format 5 template that we provide, for instance, with wInsight, that the users can choose to use, or they can create their own. There is a slight change with this because of the new editor doesn't support cascading style sheets in the same way. If you are using style sheets, you have to use a specific file for your style sheets within the wInsight wInsight winst folder. So where all the other templates are, effectively, there'll be a file there to use if you're using style sheets to style input forms. But that's the only, again, apart from the menu being in a different place, everything else should work. And then there's a number of other changes. So probably quite a significant one is the updated encryption and hashing protocols. So it's intended to strengthen security within the PPM suite and will be applied across all of the PPM tools. And basically, when it's triggered, it will require users to change the password. That triggering process doesn't take place until all the tools are using are basically at the same level. So in other words, at the level where they're supporting the new protocols. So I think the first tools to use to support those protocols will, I think, be I'm not 100% sure, but I think might be Touchstone and wInsight. But the next release of Cobra and OpenPlan will also, in fact, OpenPlan might be the other one that's using them today. But those are the tools that will support them all the tools will support them in the next release. And if you're sharing, if you've got multiple tools within your organization, and if they're sharing the same database, then the upgrade won't be triggered until all the tools are at the same level. Obviously, we can't have a situation where some passwords are encrypted one way and some the other. So basically, if you install wInsight 8.3.2, but you're still using Cobra 8.4, then and they're sharing a database, then wInsight users and the passwords and the encryption of data sources .dat, etc. won't occur when you install wInsight. It won't happen until you install 8.5 of Cobra. At that point, both Cobra and wInsight users will have to change passwords and move to the new encryption protocol. And things like data sources .dat, etc., will also be re-encrypted. Then we've got the 64-bit versions. So that's just an installer thing. So when you download, you'll have a choice to download 64-bit versions of the main applications. Of course, WAM is already 64-bit, so the WAM tool or the wInsight analytics module which uses ClickView, is already 64-bit. So now this would bring those tools up to 64-bit along with that, and they could be installed in the same folder. And the final one there, which is one that I haven't mentioned previously, is that we did make a regulatory change that was requested by some of the customers to export subcontractors in the IPM DAR export. So basically, if you look at the IPM DAR description, you'll find that it does have a subcontractor JSON table, and essentially that's for any subcontractors with flow down requirements that are identified in the OBS. So essentially what this means is that if in your OBS you've got subcontractors with flow down requirements, you can select the subcontractor in the OBS grid, and wInsight will then basically carry that across in the export of the OBS table, the OBS JSON file, but it will also export the actual subcontractor itself. I mean, this assumes, well, normally the subcontractor on that table would be the default contractor. In other words, the contractor in the contract header. But for any different contractors to the default, it would now export them in the IPM DAR export. So that's really the full set of changes within 8.3.2. Is there any questions? Would anybody like me to go over some or actually show some in the application itself? No?
Take that as a no.
Say again?
I said, I guess we'll take that as a no since nobody raised their hand or said yes, please, or anything like that. So, but that was great, Mike. Thank you very much.
Okay. Certainly, if anybody's got any more questions that come up later, I'm happy to walk through some of these changes in the actual applications. Okay.
Great. Thank you so much. I will stop the recording and I'll be posting.